Hello everyone, welcome back to today's story. In this video, we dive into the struggles of Diep and James as love collides with pride. Determined to help James rebuild his life, Diep works tirelessly at the market and even borrows $1 million from the bank to support his new venture. But James, too proud to accept her sacrifice, rejects the money and insists on carrying his burdens alone. Torn between her love for him and his refusal to let her help, Diep begins to wonder if the only way to protect him is to walk away. Stay tuned until the very end to see how love, sacrifice, and vulnerability test the limits of their bond. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to us. The morning light spills across the market, catching on the rows of fresh greens that Diep has neatly arranged on her stall. She wipes her hands on her apron, her face glowing with both effort and a quiet determination. Nee runs beside her, clutching a small basket filled with herbs, her childish voice carrying across the noise of bargaining and chatter. Fresh vegetables, 20,000 a bunch. Come get them. The little girl calls, beaming at strangers who pass by. Diep laughs softly, smoothing her daughter's hair as she packs another bundle for a customer. Every sale, no matter how small, pushes her dream forward. A dream not for herself, but for James. She knows he is struggling, knows the weight he carries, and she has vowed to lighten it however she can. Behind her smile, however, lies an exhaustion she rarely admits. The market is loud, the work demanding, and yet she throws herself into it with renewed energy each day. Every coin she earns is carefully counted and put aside. Every debt she takes on is endured with the hope that one day James will have the foundation he needs to stand tall again. When the rush of customers slows, Nye tugs at her sleeve. "Mom, will Uncle James come by tonight?" Diep hesitates, her hands still, her heart tightening. "Maybe," she answers softly, avoiding the child's gaze. "He's busy, but he loves us." It is true, she thinks. He loves them deeply. But what troubles her is the stubborn pride in his heart, the pride that keeps him from leaning on her, from sharing his pain, from letting her shoulder any of his burden. As the sun climbs higher, the sweat beads on her forehead. She wipes it away, masking her worry with another bright smile for a new customer. All the while, a plan takes shape in her mind. James has lost so much, but she refuses to let him be crushed. That night, in the quiet of her small home, Diep pulls out a folder from beneath the bed. Inside are documents from the bank, stamped and signed. Her fingers tremble as she looks at the figure written in bold, 1,000 USD. It is more money than she has ever dared to imagine, but it is real, loaned to her under the weight of promises she will spend years repaying. She whispers to herself, almost like a prayer, "This will give him the chance he needs." Across the city, James sits in his dimly lit room. His mother watches him closely, her voice tinged with both worry and frustration. "Why must you refuse help? Why let your father strip you of everything, yet still carry it all on your own?" James leans back, his expression calm but unyielding. "Mom, I don't want to live on his terms. He froze my accounts. shut every door he could. But those were his creations, not mine. I will build something of my own. His mother shakes her head, tears glistening in her eyes. You're too stubborn. Even Diep, she would help you if you'd let her. That girl loves you more than her own life. A flicker of pain crosses James's face. He thinks of Diep, of her smile, of the way she shoulders responsibilities far beyond her strength. He wants to protect her, not become another weight she must bear. Mom, he says quietly, I won't let her suffer for my failures. Whatever happens, I'll endure it myself. Later, as dusk falls, Diep appears at his door. She holds the folder close, her heart pounding. James greets her with a tired smile, but before he can speak, she presses the papers into his hands. James, she says firmly, this is for you. A loan from the bank, $1 million. You can use it to start over, to build your own company. Don't refuse, please. For a long moment, silence fills the room. James stares at the documents, his hands trembling. His chest tightens with both gratitude and despair. No, Diep, he finally whispers, his voice hoarse. I can't take this. I won't. Her eyes widen in shock. Why not? James, this is what you need. I worked for this. I borrowed this money, so you wouldn't have to keep suffering alone. But James shakes his head, his jaw set. Because I love you. Because I can't let you drown in my battles. This debt, this weight, it's not yours to carry. I would rather fail alone than see you chained by what should be mine. Diep feels her throat tighten, her vision blur with tears. Do you think I care about debt? Do you think I can watch you fight and break and not try to save you? James, we're supposed to be partners. Why won't you let me in? His silence cuts deeper than any words. He sets the folder back in her lap, his gaze steady but filled with pain, because, he says softly, if you lose everything for me, I will never forgive myself. Diep turns away, pressing her trembling hands against her face. She has never felt so helpless, so torn between love and despair. She only wanted to lift him, to stand with him, but he is determined to walk through the fire alone. That night, long after James has walked her home, Diep lies awake staring at the ceiling. His words echo in her mind, burning like a wound. He does not want her help. He does not want her sacrifice. She whispers into the darkness, then maybe I should let him go. Her heart breaks as she thinks it, but another thought follows. If her presence only makes his struggles heavier, perhaps the greatest gift she can give him is her absence. In the days that follow, Diep throws herself into work more fiercely than before. She greets every customer with energy, bargains with quick wit, and counts each coin with sharp focus. Yet when she is alone, her hands shake as she thinks of James and of the growing distance between them. Nye notices the change. One afternoon, as they pack up the stall, the girl looks up and asks, Mom, why are you so sad lately? Did Uncle James do something wrong? Diep forces a smile, hugging her tightly. No, sweetheart. He didn't do anything wrong. He's just carrying a lot right now. But in her heart, the decision takes root. If James won't let her stand beside him, then perhaps the only way to honor his wishes is to step aside. As the sun sets over the market, casting long shadows on the dirt road, Diep watches the horizon with a heavy heart. She wonders if tomorrow will be the day she begins to pull away, the day she chooses his peace over her love. And though she tells herself it's for his sake, the ache in her chest whispers a truth she cannot silence: that letting go of James might be the hardest choice she will ever make. The following week, the village market bustles as usual. But for Diep, everything feels heavier. She arranges her vegetables with practiced precision, her smile never wavering, but inside her chest beats a storm. Each sale reminds her of the bank loan, $1 million resting silently in her account, waiting to be used. Yet James's refusal echoes louder than the noise of the market. Nye, full of innocence, waves at familiar customers, proudly helping her mother. "Buy from us the freshest greens," she calls out, her little voice bright as birdsong. People laugh, pat her head, and buy more than they need, charmed by her sweetness. Diep thanks them warmly, but when she turns away, her smile fades. Her mind drifts to James. She pictures him sitting alone, staring at documents, shoulders weighed down by burdens he refuses to share. She had hoped money would free him, but instead, it built a wall between them. That evening, James visits. He looks tired, but still manages a gentle smile for Nye. The child rushes to him, wrapping her small arms around his leg. "Uncle James," she squeals, "you didn't forget us." James kneels, lifting her into his arms. "How could I ever forget you?" he whispers, kissing her hair. For a fleeting moment, warmth fills the small home. Diep watches them, her chest tightening. This bond, this quiet family, means everything to her. Yet she cannot ignore the truth. James's pride keeps him from letting her help, and her determination to stand by him is becoming another burden he never asked for. Over dinner, she watches him carefully. He eats little, lost in thought. When she asks about his plans, he gives vague answers, his tone calm but guarded. After Nye falls asleep, Diep gathers her courage. She takes a deep breath and faces him across the table. "James, do you know how much I've sacrificed already? Not for myself, but for you. I borrowed money because I believe in you, because I can't bear to see you carry everything alone." James's eyes soften, but he shakes his head. "Diep, I know, and I love you for it, but I can't accept it. I'd rather be crushed under the weight of my own failure than see you suffer because of me." Her heart cracks. Tears well in her eyes, but she refuses to let them fall. "And what about me? Do I not have the right to choose this path with you? Do you think love is only about protecting, not sharing?" His silence answers everything. He wants her close, but not too close. He wants her love, but not her sacrifice. That night, after James leaves, Diep sits alone in the dim light. She stares at the folder of bank papers again, her hands trembling. She whispers to herself, maybe the only way to protect him is to walk away. The decision is not made lightly. Every fiber of her being screams to stay, to fight for their love. But she cannot ignore the way James flinches whenever she tries to help, the way his pride rejects her efforts. The next day, she works in the market as usual, but her thoughts are far away. She imagines a life without James, empty, cold, but perhaps easier for him. Without her, He would not feel the weight of her sacrifices. Without her, he could fight freely, without guilt. Nye notices her mother's sadness again. "Mom, don't cry," the girl whispers, wiping Diep's cheek with her small hand. "Uncle James will fix everything. He's strong." Diep forces a smile, hugging her tightly. "Yes, sweetheart, he's strong." But her heart whispers a truth she dares not speak. Strength alone may not be enough. Meanwhile, James sits in his office late at night, staring at blank pages. He tries to sketch out plans, business models, new ventures, but his mind keeps returning to Diep. Her tearful eyes haunt him, the way her hands trembled when she offered him the loan. He knows she is slipping away, and the thought terrifies him more than any failure. His pride tells him to let her go, to set her free from his burdens. But his heart screams the opposite, that he needs her, not her money, but her presence, her unwavering faith. Still, he cannot bring himself to admit it. Days pass. The tension grows, invisible but sharp. When James visits again, Diep greets him kindly, but there is distance in her voice. She no longer pushes him, no longer offers solutions. She cooks, she listens, she smiles, but her eyes are different, calm, resigned, as if preparing to let him go. James senses it. Over dinner, he blurts out, "Diep, are you thinking of leaving me?" Her hands freeze around the chopsticks. For a moment, silence hangs heavy in the air. Then, with a trembling voice, she answers, "If staying only makes your life harder, then maybe I should." James's heart lurches. He slams his fist lightly against the table, his voice rough. "No, don't say that. I'd rather lose everything else than lose you." Tears spill down Diep's cheeks. "Then why won't you let me share your burdens? Why must you fight alone?" He has no answer. His lips part, but no words come. Pride and love war within him, tearing him apart. That night, when he leaves, Diep collapses onto her bed, sobbing quietly so Nee won't hear. The decision still hangs over her like a storm cloud. Stay and suffer, or leave and set him free. One evening, she walks alone by the river, watching the moonlight shimmer on the water. The cool breeze brushes her face as she whispers into the night, "James, I love you so much, but maybe love means letting go." Behind her, a familiar voice calls her name. She turns, startled, to see James standing there, his face pale, his eyes shining with desperation. "I followed you," he admits, his voice breaking, "because I felt you slipping away. And I can't let you go, Diep. Not now, not ever." Her breath catches. For the first time, she sees him raw, vulnerable, stripped of his stubborn pride. He steps closer, his hands trembling. "I don't need your money," he says, his voice hoarse. "But I need you. I need your faith, your love, your presence. If you leave me, I have nothing left." Diep's tears fall freely. "Then let me stay. Let me share the weight. I don't care how heavy it is, as long as we carry it together." For a moment, the night holds them in silence. Then James pulls her into his arms, holding her as if she were the only anchor in his storm. The river flows quietly beside them, the moon casting silver light over their embrace. For the first time, James allows himself to lean on her, to let her strength become part of his own. Diep closes her eyes, feeling his heartbeat against her cheek. She knows the road ahead will still be hard, the debt still real, the struggle still sharp. But in this moment, she also knows they will not walk it alone. Because love, in all its messy, painful, stubborn truth, is not about shielding each other from hardship. It is about standing together, even when the world threatens to break them apart. And as they stand by the river, holding each other against the night, Diep feels her decision shift. She will not leave. She will stay, fight, sacrifice, whatever it takes. Because James may refuse her money, but he can no longer refuse her heart. The night deepens, but within it, a fragile hope glows. Hope that together they might find a way through the storm.